Carl Wilson of Springs, who resided at Point Celine St. George, director of the Point Celine Hotel known as Fox Inn, passed away on Tuesday 21st March 2023 at the age of 77. He was the father of Maria Wilson Bennett, grandfather of Nicholson and Joshua Bennett, adopted son of Eustace Weeks in the USA, brother of Clive Baker in Canada, and Norma Wilson in the USA. Caregivers Brenda Lee Twine, Yolande and Tracy Mitchell, Dexter, Beverly Penny, Anicia David, Keitha, Nurse Daniel, and all the staff of the Point Celine Hotel. Uncle of Lynette Peters, Jeanette Island Amede, Kenneth, Arnott, Yvette and Bundy Sharp, Maureen Ince, David Mitchell, Ian Wilson, Darren Sharp, Annick, Hugo and Charlotte, Kenny Wilson, Sonia and Alvin Marichaud. Cousin of Catherine Celestine, Irva, Joyce, Helen and Sylvan Checkley, Spanny and Dunbar Wilson and family, Arlene Dells Lacrette and family, the Checkley, Pilgrim, Dells and Wilson families, Charlie and the Peters brothers, Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Nichols, Rawle, Ricky also known as Sugars, Wendy and Jennifer Lewis, Carmen and Kenneth St. Bernard, godfather of Alvin Banfield and Dorsey Alec in the USA. Many other relatives and close friends, too numerous to mention. The funeral service for the late Carl Wilson of Springs, who resided at Point Celine St. George, will take place on Thursday, 27th April at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Gateway Assembly, Point Celine St. George, and interment will be at the Family Cemetery Springs on Friday, 20th April at 10 a.m. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lakpa Brothers Funeral Home. Madge Carmen Narayan, also known as Clary, of Industry, who resided at Nunparel St. Mark and Montu St. George, passed away on Monday 27th March 2023 at the age of 54. She was the common-law wife of Theophilus Francis, mother of Keisha Narayan in Canada, Rocky in England, Rima, Kamon, Shamoli and Theona Narayan in Grenada, grandmother of Naomi and Nia Swan in Canada, Callan in England, Kitania, Kiandra and Dishon Narayan in Grenada, great-grandmother of Kaya Narayan, sister of Ethelyn Sylvester, Curtis in St. Vincent, Georgina Lalsey, Velda Edwards, Ralston and Hermione Narayan, Vira, Ronald in England and Crosby Narayan. Many nieces and nephews including Karen Young, Hannah Narayan, Derek Edwards in England, Glennis Batiste, Rohan Sylvester, Willan Simon, Rachel and Abigail Narayan. Close cousins and relatives including the Narayan family of Fountain and Redmond, the Ganes family of Industry and Fountain, the Ramdeen and Mason families of Mount Carmel, the Paisody family of Union St. Andrew, the Batiste and Richardson families of Nunparel, sister-in-law of Ophir Narayan in England, brothers-in-law Sylvester Simon of Industry and Peter Edwards of Nunparel, close friends and neighbors including Allison, Earl Williams and family, Sandrine Gibbs and family, the pastor and members of the Grand Anse Spiritual Baptist Church, many family and loved ones of Montu, Grand Anse and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Madge Carmen Narayan, also known as Clary, of Industry, who resided at Nunparel St. Mark and at Montu St. George, will take place on Thursday, 27th April at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Nunparel Open Bible Church St. Mark, and entombment will be at the Marley Cemetery St. Patrick. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Emmanuel Sylvester, also known as Manu, of Pomrose St. David, who resided at Wester Hall, passed away on Thursday, 16 February 2023 in the United Kingdom, at the age of 93. Left to mourn are his children Anne, Sherma, Sonia, Wendy, Paul, Martin and Leon. Grandchildren Sibo, Shadeen, Talisa, Dean, Stephen, Lorena, Enoch, Myron, Shala, Tanisha, Melissa, Heman, Jamal, Dalvin, Olivia, Kibra, Caleb, and Delena. Many great-grandchildren. 4 great-great-grands. Other relatives and friends including the Mark family, the Fontaine family, the Henry family, the Lynch family, the Bernard and Whiteman families, Auntie Marjorie, and friends and relatives of Pomrose, Westerhall and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Emmanuel Sylvester, also known as Manu, of Pomrose, who resided at Westerhall St. David, will take place on Thursday, 27th April at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. David Catholic Church, followed by interment at the St. David Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Joseph Clark, also known as Joe, of Cherry Hill St. George, who resided in the USA and at Mount Granby St. John, passed away on Monday, March 20th, 2023, at the age of 73. He was the husband of Anne Clark, father of Calvin, Ernest and Joseph Clark, grandfather of Anson, Damien, Nichelle and Sidney, brother of Myrtle Williams, George Simon Clark, Ronald Gomez Clark, and Yvonne Beggs, uncle of Andy Nimrod, Niall Beggs, Victor MacLeod, Reginald Latouche, Albert and Whittaker Latouche, Joan and Alyssa Simon, brother-in-law of Clive, Carlton and Dale Lewis, in-laws Elsa Belfon and Norma Gibbs. Many cousins, other relatives and close friends including Maureen Thomas, Reuben, Avis Lewis, Emerson Yard, Mitchell Godwin St. John, David Smalls, Daniel Lewis and family, the Best, MacPhail, and Thomas families of Mount Granby, and friends and neighbours in the USA, Canada, the United Kingdom, Cherry Hill, Mount Granby, and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Joseph Clark, also known as Joe of Cherry Hill St. George, who resided in the USA and at Mount Granby St. John, will take place on Thursday, 27th April at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. John's Anglican Church, and entombment will be at the Douglaston Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Rita Ruth and Twine, née Boney, of Williamson Road, St. George's, who resided at Bedrock, Grandon, St. George, passed away on Saturday, 15th April 2023, at the age of 84. She was the mother of Pearl Griffith, Bernadette Mitchell, Richard, Marilyn, Ricky, Christopher, Christine, and Suzanne Twine. Grandmother of 13, including Charleston, Ryan, Tammy, Katrina, Richiana, Ulrich, Shomari, Jelani, Akira, and Rashida. Great-grandmother of 6, sister of Henry Boney in the USA, and Cynthia and Marden in the UK. Mother-in-law of Keith Mitchell. Aunt of many in the USA and the United Kingdom, including Nico Caesar, Teresa, Margaret, and Constance. Many cousins, other relatives and close friends including the Boney family of Bolio, Alison Miller, Denise Sayers, Lydia Byam and family, Linda, Cara, Mr. Brown and family, the priest and parishioners, Our Lady of Mount Carmel Catholic Church Caliste, and friends and neighbours of Bedrock, Grandance, and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Rita Ruth and Twine, née Boney, of Williamson Road, St. George's, who resided at Bedrock, Grandon, St. George, will take place on Friday, 28th April at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Garden of Remembrance Funeral Chapel, Cemetery Hill, St. George's, according to Roman Catholic rites, and interment will be at the Wilberforce Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Samuel Everard Holder of Marigot St. John passed away on Friday, 24th March 2023, at the age of 94. He was the husband of Doris Holder. He is survived by his 3 sons and their wives, Errol and Lorna, Dennis, also known as Dunstan and Yvette, Osbert and Judith, daughter Lullin Tavares, grandfather of Zwedi and Kaya Holder, Gaika, Kibwe and Zena Tavares, Warren, Julian and Miles Holder, Osi and Jabari Holder, great-grandfather of Nova and Amaya Holder, brother of Leonard, Septimus, also known as Bude, Bernard, Liban, Manly and Augustus, Queenie, Claudette, Evelyn, and Emmis, uncle of Callistra Campbell and family, Edris Nixon and family, Evadne Filbert and family, Mary Chambers and family, Hilani Augustine and family, the Marast family of Springs, the Holder families in Grenada, Trinidad, the United Kingdom and the USA, and the Richards family in the US. Many other relatives and close friends including Norgelin Narjo Mitchell and family, Lucille St. John and family, the Thomas family of St. Paul's, the Williams families in Grenada, the UK, Canada and the USA, Gerald Thomas and family, Joseph Button and family, the Clark family in Canada, the Holder families of Black Bay, Marigot, Concord, Grand Roy and Grove, the Louiseau family of Concord, the Forsyth family of Victoria and Grove, the Fraser family of Lamode, the priest and parishioners of the St. Matthew's Anglican Church, Black Bay, and the St. John's Anglican Church, and friends and neighbours of Black Bay, Marigot, Concord and Grand Roy. The funeral of the late Samuel Everard Holder of Marigot St. John will take place on Friday 28th April at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Matthew's Anglican Church, Black Bay, St. John, and interment will be at the churchyard cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lackwell Brothers Funeral Home. Theodorina Willer-Lessie of Molyneux St. George died on Wednesday, April 12, 2023, at the age of 84. Left to mourn are her children Sonia Charles and Donna Lessie residing in Trinidad, Addis Dottin and Karen Lessie residing in Canada, Stephen, also known as Shasha Ross, Kevin, also known as Bobby, and Kenton, also known as Sean Lessie, residing in Grenada. Siblings Rosalie Ross residing in Grenada, and Derek Ross residing in New York. Stepdaughter Shema Maitland and family residing in New York. 14 grandchildren Nashon in Dominica, Garel, Tamura Lessie Charles, Wazira, Azira, Sammy, Khalil in Grenada, Amanda Ross Noel, Kendra, Janelle, Nigel, Shawnell in Trinidad, Zoe and Zane in Canada. Great-grandchildren Dane, Nicholas, Zevon, Daniela, Elson, Mia, Zahara, Nyla and Jana. Sons-in-law Edwin Charles residing in Trinidad, Sylvain Dottin and Devon Charles residing in Canada. Daughters-in-law Sarah Maskell residing in Grenada and Nadij Lessie in Dominica. Many nieces and nephews including Jeremy Ross, also known as Jerry, and Scanny Don. Close family and friends including Danielle and Wendy Thomas, Alfred Walcott and family, the Ross family of Happy Hill and New Hampshire, Merrill Nichols and family of the Fence, Happy Hill, Anastasia Gibbs and family, the Harris family of the Fence, Eunice Joseph and family, Dudley and Twine and family, Jim and Teresa Sandy and family, Kenny Newton and family, the Entwine family, Tina and Kieran Barry and family, Suzanne Charles, Eudine Richardson, Robert and Irvana Bowen, members of the Concord, Beausejour and Grand Ball Seventh-day Adventist churches, and friends and neighbours of Molyneux, Happy Hill and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Theodorina Willer-Lessie of Molyneux St. George will take place on Wednesday, May 3rd at 1:45 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. George's Seventh-day Adventist Church, Archibald Avenue, and interment will be at the St. George's Centre Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Gladys Solomon, also known as Miss Allie, of Ben Jones Street, Grenville, St. Andrew, passed away on Wednesday, April 19th, 2023, at the age of 102. She was the mother of Pearl Solomon Thompson and Hussein Solomon, adopted mother of Vernon B. Cesar, also known as Scales, grandmother of Stephen and Sammy Solomon and Llewellyn Thompson Jr., mother-in-law of Asher and Llewellyn, aunt of Beverly Steele and Lydia Finley, Roderick and Miriam Dialli, Ronald Fenton Thomas and Christlyn Charles, Joan Belgrave and June Bourne, Floyd, Jimmy, Kenneth and Roy Van Leeward, Sheila Charles, Alistair Thomas and Wayne Frederick. Caregiver Loris Romaine. Staff of Miss Allie's Store, Merlin Williams and Desra Date. Close friend Daphne Gilbert. Customers, neighbours and the community of Grenville, other relatives and friends. The funeral of the late Gladys Solomon, also known as Miss Allie, of Ben Jones Street, Grenville, St. Andrew, will take place on Wednesday, May 3rd at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Paradise Seventh-day Adventist Church, and interment will be at the Grand Bras Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. George Neville Campbell, also known as Ombre and Pops of Beaulieu St. George, passed away on Friday 14th April 2023 at the age of 74. Left to mourn his wife Mary Campbell, children Tara and Terence in the USA, Alan Mitchell, Valerie and Tevin in Grenada, grandfather of Rena in the USA, Javid, Janique, Carissa, Joshua and Johanna in Grenada, brother of Lucy Small in the USA, Nestor Edwards, and Merle Adolphus, better known as Tonty Merle in Grenada, nephew of Reginald St. Bernard, better known as Moses, and B-Roll Pivot, son-in-law of Magdalene Williams, brother-in-law of Matthias Adolphus, better known as Papa, Augustine, better known as Cockman, Andy and Ryan, Philip Joseph, Stephen and Sandra, Edith, Julie and Margaret, father-in-law of Adis Mitchell and Roger Telesford, uncle of many including Dolores, Natasha, and Anthony, better known as Man, Margaret, Sharon, Richard, Rika and Marlon, Desmond, Mervyn, Alistair, Gail, Etlin, Shermaine, Jocelyn and Grant. Many cousins, other relatives and close friends including Joan Thomas and family, Marilyn Edwards and family, the Campbell and James families of New Hampshire, Ravine and Montgay, the Cador family of Bellevue, the Williams and Alexander families of Markey, Shane Derby, Roger Thomas, the staff and students of Wesley College and St. George's Methodist School, Northeast bus drivers, Pat Jones and family, the parishioners of Our Lady Help of Christians Beaulieu, and neighbours and friends of Beaulieu and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late George Neville Campbell, better known as Ombre and Pops, of Beaulieu St. George, will take place on Wednesday, May 3rd at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Beaulieu Roman Catholic Church, and entombment will be at the Family Cemetery, Beaulieu. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Waltrude Andrew, better known as Leefoon of Union St. Andrew, who resided at Canal Road, Grenville, passed away at the General Hospital on Tuesday, April 18, 2023, at the age of 64. Left to mourn her children Willan Andrew, Diane Abel Jeffrey, Diana Abel Filbert, Kwame Andrew and Lester Andrew, sisters Erlyn Andrew, Cynthia Andrew in Trinidad, Vassie Andrew and Christine Martinez in Canada, Chrismay Peters, Alice Moraine, and Yolande Moraine in the USA. Brothers Michael Blackboy Andrew, Ashton Stewart, Jerry Andrew, Cyril Andrew, and Albert Boney Andrew in Grenada, and Rupert Moraine in the USA. 18 grandchildren including Saroya, Tishon, Trevon, and Tarika Andrew, Philandi and Zariel Jeffrey, Kwan Cato Andrew in Grenada, and Rihanna Thomas in the USA. 2 great-grands, aunts Muriel de Noel, Sheila Andrew, and Hermelin Moraine. Uncles Christian Georgie Andrew, Earl Black Andrew, Lloyd Moraine, Joseph Moraine in Grenada, and DeGale Andrew in Trinidad. Nieces and nephews including Seldia Merrill Panchu and Devon Ashton in the USA, Paige Andrew in Trinidad, Michelle Sabrina Alexander, Michael Darren Alexander, Misha Pempem Alexander, Andrew, Raquel Patrick, Chelsea and Tillon Felix in Grenada. Sons-in-law Finley Scholar Jeffrey and Steve Filbert. Daughters-in-law Rachel Thomas Andrew, Jennifer Cato Andrew, and Kim Mitchell. Many other relatives and friends including Mary Moraine and family, Manda Williams Swap, Sherry Andrew in Miami, Emma Venture, Wendy DeGale and family, Ann Peters, Lynette Stanisclaus, Josephine Vincent, and Pearl Modeste Quashi in the UK. Caregiver Stedlin Isaac. Other relatives and friends including the Andrews family of Union, Post Royal, De Blando, Hope and Mirabeau, the Moraine and Batiste families of St. David, the DeGans family of De Blando, the Abel family of Post Royal, the Rennie family of Salisbury Road, Grenville, the Celestine family of Markey, the Knight family of Telescope, the nurses and doctors of the nephrology department at the General Hospital, and friends and neighbours of Telescope and Grenville. The funeral service for the late Waltrud Andrew, also known as Leefoon of Union St. Andrew, who resided at Canal Road, Grenville, St. Andrew, will take place on Wednesday, May 3rd at 2 p.m. Tributes begin at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Lacroix Brothers Funeral Chapel, Gladstone Road, Grenville, and entombment will be at the Grand Bras Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Theodore Lordwin Johnson, also known as Sezo and Float, of Village Road, Grenville, who resided in Brooklyn, New York, USA, a former police officer, died on April 15, 2023, at the age of 83. Left to mourn his children Dr. Keith Johnson and Raphael Johnson in Grenada, Kenneth Johnson and Cherry-Ann Antwine in Canada, and Patrick Johnson in the USA. Sisters Gemma Moses in England and Decima Woodsley in the USA. Daughters-in-law Pearl, Viola, Linda, Carol, Alice and Maggie. Brothers-in-law Steve Woodsley and Chester Moses. Many nieces and nephews including Morris Moses, Shaka, Onaika and Nikki Woodsley. Grandchildren Sekou, Kinder, Kim, Karina, Kazel, Kwame, Kwasi, Dr. Della John, Dr. Zania John, Vonda, Zoya, Danielle, Justin, Kanisha, Laurel, Rihanna, K-Anna, Latoya, Keola, Shanice, Shanika, O'Neill, Leanne, Jalen, Jevon, and Corey. 12 great-grands. Other relatives and friends including Selma, Morsel and Kathleen Vincent and the Vincent family, Marlon, Mr. Perrott, Harold, Bullet, Buck, Woody, Mikey, Elroy, Peter, the boys by Peter's shop, the Joseph families of Pearls and Telescope, the George, Mitchell and Thomas families of Hermitage, the Copeland and Johnson families of Grand Bras, the Goodings family and the boys by the Police Garage, Brooklyn, and neighbors and friends of Village Road, Rivulet Lane, Harfords Village, Cook Hill and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Theodore Lordwin Johnson, also known as Sezo and Float, of Village Road, Grenville, who resided in Brooklyn, New York, USA, will take place on Thursday, May 4th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Andrew the Apostle R.C. Church, and interment will be at the Grand Bras Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Janet Linda Forrester of Canal Road, Grenville, St. Andrew, who resided in Toronto, Canada, passed away on April 26, 2022 in Canada, at the age of 76. She was the mother of Betty Ann and Donna Charles, grandmother of Kadeem Charles Finn, Dante Jones, Dominic Philander, and Selena Rambaransing, sister of Rodney Astor, Ines Noel, Patricia John, and Patrick John, niece of Claudette Forrester, Ruggles Forrester, Leno and Wellen John, aunt of Zola, Joel, Brent, Francis, Meshia, Frances, James, and Oxford Forrester, Nigel Brian Astor, Lucy and Timothy Noel, Eleanor and Jensen Jeffrey, sister-in-law of Millie Astor, George Noel and Letitia Forrester, mother-in-law of Nigel Philander. Other relatives and friends including the Forrester family in Canada, the USA, England, Trinidad, Barbados and Grenada, Paraclete and Birchgrove, the John family in Trinidad and in the USA, the Astor family in Trinidad, the McBain family in Grenada and Canada, the Jones and Edwards family in Canada. A memorial service for the late Janet Linda Forrester of Canal Road, Grenville, St. Andrew, who resided in Toronto, Canada, will take place on Thursday, May 4th at 2 p.m. at the Tivoli Sacred Heart RC Church. Arrangements entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home. Talik Wilfana Laborde, also known as Shortstuff and Wendy, of Trinidad, who resided at Montu St. George, former student of St. George's Anglican Junior and Senior Schools and the Boca Secondary School, passed away on Tuesday, 11th April 2023, at the age of 34. She was the mother of Jaylene Andrews, daughter of Thalicia St. Bernard Hagley and Wilfred Laborde in Trinidad, stepdaughter of Peter Hagley, sister of Kenton St. Bernard in England, Mario St. Bernard, also known as Jess, and Darwin Laborde in Grenada, aunt of Kanaya Smith in England, Camilla St. Bernard, Zayden Noel and Zahira Laborde. Grandniece of Sylvia Gilbert and Thelma Charles. Many other relatives and friends including the St. Bernard family in Grenada, Trinidad, Canada, England and the USA, the Laborde family in St. Vincent, Trinidad and Grenada, the family of Jacob Williams and siblings, Christopher Riley and siblings, Lisa St. Bernard and siblings, Marina McGilvery Wint, Kiva Gibbs, Saskia Noel, Samantha Lewis, Cinda McIntyre, Keith Thomas, Kim Douglas, Donalyn Pope, Odette LeBlanche, Beverly Nicholas, Carleen Pisa, Dwight Ross, the pastor and members of the St. George's Baptist Church and the St. George's Anglican and Boca Secondary Schools, and friends and neighbours of Montu and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Talik Wilfana Laborde, also known as Shortstuff and Wendy, of Trinidad, who resided at Montu St. George, will take place on Thursday, May 4th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. George's Baptist Church Springs, and entombment will be at the family cemetery Woodlands. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Abraham Michael Richer, also known as Satan, of River Lane, Grove, St. John, passed away on Friday, 7th April 2023, at the age of 71. He was the father of Desra Gill, Nicole Joseph, Rhaenyra and Tara Banfield, grandfather of Kimberly and Kimber Modeste in the USA, Genesis Joseph, Cedric Marquez, Kimya Ashton, Cassidy and Madison Gill, brother of Lorna Richer Lewis in the UK, uncle of Sandra, Donna, Derek, Bernard, Ingrid, Felix Crow, Jimmy and Carl Crow, father-in-law of Michael Ashton and Swan Barry. Other relatives and friends including Elvin Rush, Dr. Gillian Thomas, Michelle Ashton, Shonita and Kinder Ambrose, Twinkle, Godson Brown, Rocco, Deslin, Sheila Ambrose, Alorna Marquez, and friends and neighbours of Grove St. John. The funeral of the late Abraham Michael Richer, also known as Satan, of River Lane, Grove St. John, will take place on Friday, May 5th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Peter's R.C. Church, Grove, and interment will be at the Douglaston Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Clinton Cosmos Alexander of Parade and Laborie St. George, who resided in the United States of America, passed away on Sunday, 9th April 2023 in the USA, at the age of 88. He was the brother of Robert in Trinidad and Sylvester, also known as Jerry, in Canada, adopted brother of Hillary in Canada, Kessler in the UK, Leonard and Jeffrey in Grenada, brother-in-law of Grace in Grenada and Ingrid in Canada, uncle of Desmond and Brian in Trinidad, Pamela, Brian, Samuel and Carol in Canada, Richard and Caroline in the UK, and Steve in Grenada. Several cousins including Alma, Denise, Hazelan, Casti in Grenada, Gillian in the USA, and many others too numerous to mention. Several godchildren including godson Keyshawn in the USA. Other relatives the Worm, Sandyford, Park, Jellino, Braffett, Burke and Charles families of Laborie and in the United Kingdom. Many dear friends including Dennis and Denise Phillip in Grenada. The Thanksgiving service for the late Clinton Cosmos Alexander of Parade and Laborie St. George, who resided in the USA, will take place on Saturday, May 6th at 11 a.m. Funeral service will be held at Riverside Church, Manhattan, New York City, USA, and a memorial service will be held in Grenada at a later date. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Deborah Patricia Stanislaus, also known as Debbie Stanislaus, of Hermitage St. Patrick, passed away on Saturday, 18th March 2023, at the age of 59. The funeral arrangements for the late Deborah Patricia Stanislaus, also known as Debbie Stanislaus, of Hermitage St. Patrick, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Phyllis Bernadine Williams of Vendham, who resided at Beaulieu St. George, passed away on Saturday, 22nd April 2023, at the age of 94. The funeral arrangements for the late Phyllis Bernadine Williams of Vendham, who resided at Beaulieu St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lackwell Brothers Funeral Home. Francis Anthony Lead, also known as the Mighty Footsie, of Birchgrove St. Andrew, who resided in the USA, passed away on Monday, October 3, 2022, at the age of 74. A memorial service for the late Francis Anthony Lead, also known as the Mighty Footsie, of Birchgrove St. Andrew, who resided in the USA, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lackwell Brothers Funeral Home. Cicely Johnson, also known as Tanti of Bellevue St. David, passed away on Thursday, 20th April 2023 in the USA, at the age of 83. The funeral arrangements for the late Cicely Johnson, also known as Tanti, of Bellevue St. David, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lackwell Brothers Funeral Home. Ashley Ned, also known as Ned of Grosse Pointe St. Mark, passed away on Thursday, April 20th, 2023, at the age of 71. The funeral arrangements for the late Ashley Ned, also known as Ned, of Grosse Pointe St. Mark, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lackwell Brothers Funeral Home. Donald Augustine Bartholomew, also known as Caliste and Swales, of Munich, who resided at Grand Bachelet St. Andrew, passed away on Monday, 17th April 2023, at the age of 72. The funeral arrangements for the late Donald Augustine Bartholomew, also known as Caliste and Swales, of Munich, who resided at Grand Bachelet St. Andrew, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lackwell Brothers Funeral Home. Anthony St. Paul, also known as Sky Grease and Tony, of Mount Granby St. John, who resided at Brazan St. George, a well-known truck driver, passed away on Wednesday, 19th April 2023, at the age of 56. The funeral arrangements for the late Anthony St. Paul, also known as Sky Grease and Tony, of Mount Granby St. John, who resided at Brazan St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lackwell Brothers Funeral Home. Mary Maguire, also known as Elsa of New Hampshire St. George, passed away on Saturday, April 8, 2023, at the age of 85. The funeral arrangements for the late Mary Maguire, also known as Elsa of New Hampshire St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Jadine Emmons Bartholomew of Happy Hill, who resided at Montparnasse St. George, owner of J&J Printers, passed away on Wednesday, April 5th, 2023, at the age of 36. The funeral arrangements for the late Jadine Emmons Bartholomew of Happy Hill, who resided at Montparnasse St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Eric George Williams of Woburn, who resided at River Road House in Scheme, passed away on Saturday, 1st April 2023, at the age of 84. The funeral arrangements for the late Eric George Williams of Woburn, who resided at River Road House in Scheme, St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lackwell Brothers Funeral Home. David Augustine Charles, also known as Cokes and Elliot, of Mamacan St. Andrew, passed away on Thursday, 23rd March 2023, at the age of 71. The funeral arrangements for the late David Augustine Charles, also known as Cokes and Elliot, of Mamacan St. Andrew, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lackwell Brothers Funeral Home.
The family of the late Janice Norma Theodore née Park wish to honor her in remembrance on this second-year anniversary since her passing. Janice Theodore resided in both Canada and Montjaloux, Grenada, and died on the 19th of April 2021 at the age of 84. Janice was a beautiful, gentle, graceful, kind-spirited, God-loving woman who has left behind the most valuable and treasured legacy of exemplary selflessness, steadfast love, and compassion. She is fondly remembered and is deeply missed. Janice is survived by her loving husband, Christopher Theodore, her children Sharon Windsor and Wendy Purcell, granddaughter Lauren, sons-in-law Bruce Windsor and Wayne Purcell, stepdaughter Patricia Mackenzie in Trinidad, many nieces, nephews, and friends. O Lord, the God of mercies, grant unto the souls of thy servants this anniversary day, of whose burial we are keeping a place of solace, of peaceful rest, of glorious light, through Christ our Lord.
The management and staff of MTV extend deepest condolences to those of you whose loved ones have passed on. Thank you for watching.
Rest it in the Lord Jesus Christ. Give him that sorrow, that pain. I know it's painful to see that our loved one go. But Jesus Christ in Isaiah chapter 5 tells us that he have taken all of that for us. He was wounded for our transgression. He was bruised for our iniquity. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and by his stripes you would be healed from that loss, brothers and sisters. You would be healed. You would soon overcome. You would still be strengthened. Look at the Lord Jesus Christ. Was bruised, beaten, spit upon, died upon a cross. His mother was there watching that child. Took so much of mankind for nothing that he have done. Yet for her, he took it all upon himself. So today, me and you, when we see what happened to our life, we can look on the cross and know there is a better future for us. It's the same thing here. When I would even say to you, sometimes when some loved one die, according to the condition of that, brothers and sisters, we should more rejoice than being sorrowful. Because God have known the best of that for us. All I want to say here to you today, that trust in God, despite whatsoever it is, get that inner faith, that inner peace. He said, cast all the cares upon him. He said, my yoke is easy and my burden is, just cast it upon him, brother. I know it might be difficult for you to think about how could you do it. Just give it a try. Just a step of faith. Just say, Lord, have your way in me. Lord, keep me through these trial times. And he will do it. He will keep you. When you read through the Psalms 23, the Lord is our shepherd. We shall not want. You read through that Psalms and you recognize that David himself was going through a testing time. And he recognized, even as he said, yea, do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. You may be walking through the valley of the shadow of death now, but you don't have to fear that evil, brothers and sisters. Because the Lord, the rod and the staff will comfort you. He will take you through that. He will carry you through. God carried the children of Israel through. He can carry you through today. Just give him your all. Give him that trust. You know why sometimes we go through many grief and pain and sorrow for weeks and for days. Sometimes we even take some loved ones with them. Because why? Our heart and our faith is not with the Lord. But I'm telling you today, just trust in the Lord. Just trust in the Lord and he will see you through. Just trust in the Lord and he will make that way for you. Stretch your arm right now and I will pray with you. Father in heaven, I thank you for the God that who you are. You don't think it as men, oh God, Father Lord. Lord, sometimes when you're moaning and groaning, you are still walking. And Father, now you are walking on these lives, oh God, Father. Those who have grieved and have lost ones, oh God, and to them, oh God, all is lost. Father, I know you can restore back unto them presently now. That faith, oh God, Father, that joy. Lord, even David has spoken about it, oh God, in Psalms 51. Oh, restore unto me the joy. Oh God, Lord, and I pray tonight, I pray now, oh God, Father, Lord, that you would restore back unto them, oh God, Lord, that they, oh God, Father, Lord, would put their trust in you. Lord, yet, oh God, Father, Lord, the memory, the evil forces, oh God, the hell, death, and all his guilt and his foes, oh God, Father, Lord, even, oh God, the neighbors and friends and relatives may come to remind them of the past, oh God, to haunt their life. But God, I pray now, oh God, that you would take it away, oh God, Father, Lord, that the memory that you would give them is one to last, oh God, Father, of eternity, oh God, looking, oh God, Father, Lord, that they would meet that that loved one that someday, oh God, and they would be together again in joy and happiness, oh God, Father Lord. Never to depart, oh God, Father Lord. I pray now that you touch them. Oh Father in heaven, oh God, Lord, you are all hearing God. And Father, I know you will not fail me. Bless them tonight, oh God, Father. Bless them today, oh God. Wheresoever they are, oh God, whosoever they are. Reach out to them, oh God, Lord, and rest your Neska hand upon them and bring them into that fold, that they would understand that, as you said, oh God, as you rise, they would rise on the last day. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. God bless you. I hope what I have shared with you would bring some closure to your pain, your grief, and your sorrow, and God will take you on to a brighter tomorrow. God bless you.